Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And if you are new to the show, of course, you can find this on iTunes, YouTube, RSS, and soon a few other podcatchers as well, once I finally get off my ass and submit the feeds to that. Quickly, before we get started on today's episode, apologies to all of the subscribers out there for not putting out the new subscriber podcast. I had some technical difficulties with my computer, which ended up crashing, and I lost what I was working on for the subscriber podcast. So that is why it is not out, but I am recording tomorrow with a good friend of the show. I'll keep it under wraps for right now, but I will be recording a new subscriber podcast, and hopefully, if I can kind of get my act together, the one that will be released by Thursday will technically be the April episode, and hopefully in late May I'll put out another episode as well. So lots to look forward to with that. I will be sending out some more of the journals. I know that people have been hounding me about some, when they're arriving and if I got the money or not. So I'll be sending out a whole bunch more. I'm sorry that it's taking so long, but it's just a whole mess getting to the post office, and it's a little bit more expensive than the shipping and handling that I've been asking of people, but that's fine. We can always figure that out. But anyway, without further ado, I'm very excited about my guest today. And my guest is Daniel Louis Crumpton. And Daniel, I think you should be very familiar to the listeners out there on AFR. But I think you're going to be fairly new to my listeners. And just a little background before I hand it over to you, Daniel. We met a few months or maybe even almost a year ago. I can't remember exactly. And you were making a small documentary on friend of the show, Chuck Ocelli, of which I am featured in a small portion of it. And that's how we got to know each other. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? So who is Daniel Louis Crumpton?
Let's see, this is like a highlight for me because you got the coolest radio host name. Like Chuck Ocelli kind of sounds like a soup. I mean, he's my buddy, but it sounds like you got Pierce Redmond. I mean, that's a cool name. I mean, is that your real name?
Yes, that is my legal name.
If that's who you really are, Pierce. Cool name. Yeah, everybody at AFR knows me. I'm the author of a novel called Then Came the Flood. I screwed up my own title. Sorry. That book is about anybody who's into spiritual or scriptural research into like before the flood of Noah and what happened that's underneath kind of the context of Genesis 1 and the book of Enoch. I was doing a lot of research back in 2010, 2011 about the Watchers, the Nephilim, extraterrestrials, and I was like, how does all this fit into the Bible? And so that novel kind of came out as a big tapestry to weave in biblical scriptures with all of these other alternative history and views of reality, really, into one big mega story. And people have kind of compared it to Lord of the Rings and Babylon 5. I don't know. I've never seen Babylon 5. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Me neither.
I'm a Star Trek guy.
I was going to say, I'm a Deep Space Nine guy myself.
Yeah, because I looked at Babylon 5's like commercials and I said, it's Deep Space Nine, dude. So, yeah. But that's what that novel is. I used to do ZenInTheCar.com, which was a website that got a bunch of activists of different spiritual proclivities together to see if maybe a Christian and an atheist and a witch and all these different faiths could work together for a common thing called freedom and liberty. So I did that for a few years, and right now I'm doing downloadedcontent.com, That's just me. It's not a team of people that people are accustomed to me being behind. It's just me. So, it's basically based off of a serial novel that's in progress that'll be published here shortly. And, articles and the downloaded content podcast, which is also on iTunes and Stitcher and anywhere that this podcast is at, I suppose. So that's what I'm doing right now, as far as primarily. So is that good enough for you? Did that meet your expectations?
That'll suffice for right now. But today we're going to be talking about a very interesting company called Canna-Sense, which is a very sort of fascinating and unique cannabis collective. And Daniel, you are actually associated with Canna-Sense. You are what they call a caregiver. But before we kind of dive into the specifics of all these things, just give us a broad sort of overview of what Canna-Sense is and how it operates, because it's a very interesting company and one that I think the listeners will really get a lot out of, and it's a really unique approach to the sort of larger cannabis culture out there. But Daniel, explain, what is Canna-Sense?
All right. Well, let me preface it by saying that everybody who's listening to your show, I know, understands that prohibition, one, doesn't work. Two, it creates organized crime. And prohibition on cannabis has been one of the biggest pieces of propaganda in American history. It's fueling so many for-profit corporations right now. And it is a medicine. I understand there are a lot of people who think it is just like a recreational type thing. However, for people like myself who have, ailments, genuine ailments that they need help with, as far as ailments go, I'm pretty low on the totem compared to a lot of other people out there. People with anxiety disorders, I personally have post-traumatic stress disorder, which comes with a big variety kit of side issues, okay? I'm also a recovered alcoholic, and so people with substance abuse problems, this is something that's beneficial for them. So I'm not going to preach to the choir. Your audience is probably smart enough to know that cannabis is a healing herb. It is not a narcotic. There's so many studies that come out every single day showing the benefits of cannabis, okay? So I'm going to make the assumption that your audience already knows all that, all right?
For sure.
So the issue in places like, for example, where I'm in the state of Georgia. You don't have to make any smart remark. Just me saying that I'm in Georgia is enough. So our legislature is not friendly to cannabis use, okay? Even what's going on in Atlanta with the medical cannabis initiatives is still not good enough, okay, as far as I'm concerned. We're getting there, but it's too slow and there's too much money involved with, personal and interest in this. So as somebody who needs cannabis to live a functional life, I was looking for a solution. And by divine, intervention or whatever, a caregiver who was a member of the Cannabis Collective got a hold of me and explained this program for me. And before I started promoting it and before I started talking about it on the radio and everywhere else, I went through it. And basically what Canna-Sense is it's not a company. It is a non-profit 501c3, okay, which means these cats have given paperwork to the government entities as to their structure. Does that make sense? So this is not like some backwoods speakeasy. This is a very public organization who has filed the appropriate paperwork with the appropriate, quote, authorities to let them, so it's not like this is a secret. Because believe it or not, I am getting some pushback on, talking about this program, and the legalities of it is one of those things. And what's weird about it is the pushback that I'm getting is coming from people who say they want it decriminalized. Which is fascinating to me. So what Canna-Sense is, essentially, is they've taken a legal framework that was over 15 years in the making. They didn't find a loophole. They found laws that already exist, a legal framework that already exists, and we call it the trifecta. So there's three, because most people who are needing medical cannabis, they're not as liberty-minded or constitution-minded as, say, me or you, and they might not even know their Bill of Rights. So we have a trifecta, which is three simple legal frameworks to explain it to people who would be members. However, that's not to be confused that it's the only three legal frameworks that we have. Okay, it's just the tip of a very big iceberg. All right, and essentially what it is you have the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, which is a California law. All right, are you familiar with that?
Yes.
All right, very milestone piece of legislation. It protects people in a cannabis collective from prosecution and all that good stuff by declassifying cannabis from a narcotic and as a medicine. So that's great if you live in California. I live in Georgia, okay? So that's a little inconvenient for me. Don't want to move to California. Don't know anybody there. So what Canna-Sense did was they took the supreme law of the land, okay? And for any detractors, the supreme law of the land trumps any lesser law. And that has never been overturned by the Supreme Court. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're on the same page so far, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Article 4 of the Constitution, you have the reciprocity clause in there, which is that, all states have to give full faith and credit to the judicial proceedings, et cetera, of other states, even if your state's laws are different. So I'm in the state of Georgia. My state's laws regarding cannabis use are not the same as California. However, if I were to become a California patient, I fall under the protections of the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, even though I'm in Georgia. So those two right there, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, and California state law, is great for anybody in any of the 50 states who needs medical cannabis, who needs a medical recommendation from a board-certified doctor that we work with. We work with doctors who are board-certified. And so now the issue becomes, how do you get to California? How do we get our patients to California? It's not very efficient to fly them there or drive them there. And so along comes Obamacare. Now, you can think whatever you want to about Obamacare. I don't really care for it. However, I use what I can get. If there's something I can take away from a disaster, I'm going to take it away from the disaster. And with Obamacare, we've got telemedicine, which is seeing a doctor via the internet and Skype-capable technology is legally the same as if you went there in person. Okay? So those three aspects are the trifecta of CannaSense. So what caregivers do, and don't be confused, caregivers are not employees. These are people who are members of the cannabis collective. And what we do is we help other people who are in need in all 50 states understand this program, understand the benefits of cannabis, and guide them through the process of becoming a California patient with a California doctor under the protection of the Compassionate Use Act. Okay, so that's what caregivers do. And so that's basically what CannaSense is it's a legal structure that gets access to patients in all 50 states to medical cannabis. Okay? So, any questions so far?
Well, I guess my initial question with this is how does the process actually function? Let's say you go to meet somebody who's in need of medical marijuana or some sort of cannabis therapy. How do you go about actually what is the process? What's like the next step?
Okay, well, I'll direct people to if you go to my website, downloadedcontent.com. Anybody who's interested. And, of course, that's my website. It's not CannaSense's website. But there is a page up at the top that says CannaSense Total Wellness. And I have tried, and I'm still refining it, but on that page is, at the very top, is a 24-minute video that where I explain to you the program, and I'll walk you through, with screenshots, how to set up your doctor's appointment, how to do the technology test, how to submit the appropriate forms for your doctor and for CannaSense. So on that video, I'll walk you through from the very beginning to the very end. Okay, that typically answers 90% of the questions that people have and shows them exactly what to click on and what information to put in. Now, because I'm getting more and more involved with this, and I'll explain why I'm getting so involved with it in a minute. There's an article there that's my personal testimony on what CannaSense has done for me. And at the very end of it, I was recently on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis, where we got phenomenal response. I mean, it was phenomenal. And so you can hear me and Clyde Lewis talk about it on that page. There are appropriate links to everything that anybody who's wanting to get a part of this needs to know on that page, from the education of the law, from the apothecary at CannaSense to the sponsorship page at CannaSense to submit your documents. So I would direct everybody there to go to downloadedcontent.com, click on the CannaSense Total Wellness page. Now, if by any means you have questions after you read the article, watch the video, and listen to the radio show, there is a contact form that will pop up. Because I'm so overloaded, because I personally am trying to contact every single person, which is extremely exhausting and fulfilling and emotionally overwhelming at the same time. If you have any questions, if you need to talk to me, put in your information, put in your phone number, your email, your name, and a brief message. I will get that, and I will contact you, or somebody that is working with me will contact you to try to answer your questions and walk you through the process. So that's where I would direct everybody, is to go to my website, click on the CannaSense Total Wellness page, and it's all right there. And if you need help, don't hesitate. Put your information in, and I'll get a hold of you. So that's kind of where I would send everybody.
Excellent. And, of course, we'll link up to all of this in the show notes. Daniel, the next immediate question, I'm sure this is a question that, a lot of people get, is the issue of legality. Now, I have to say, I think that the trifecta, as you call it, this, combination of the Compassionate Use Act, the Affordable Care Act, and Article 4, Section 1 of the Constitution is of course, is a very strong and a very interesting way of coming about this, and one that, legally you could really make a case for this, that with these three things, you can, this is, I assume that this is, done on purpose by CannaSense, is that if this were ever to become a legal issue, well, there is a very straightforward legal framework that's already in place here. But the question here about legality, is this safe? Because obviously, you're saying, if you're living in, Tennessee or something, marijuana is being shipped to you. So now again, is this safe? And let's keep in mind too that, what's the alternative? I mean, is it safe to just buy weed from your local drug dealer? Is that any safer? Is that, any more dangerous? So what's, because I'm sure you get that a lot. What is the legality here?
Yeah, I do get that a lot. And we haven't gotten to the part where, they ship your medicine to you yet, but so if you don't mind, let me go ahead and walk people through that process so they kind of have a context, because you've already looked at it, so you're aware. So let me, to the audience.
Yeah, if you want to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool. Basically with CannaSense, once you get your doctor's recommendation, okay, for whatever ailment, I mean, there's a list of ailments that you can get your recommendation for when you fill out your questionnaire. Anxiety, depression, PTSD, or is it cancer? Is it autism? Is it Parkinson's disease? Once you get that recommendation from the doctors who work with Presto Doctor, but not for Presto Doctor, you're going to take that recommendation to CannaSense. You're going to upload it, and you're going to become a patient of the CannaSense Cannabis Collective, which is under the protections of the Compassionate Use Act. When you become a patient, you get access to CannaSense's apothecary. And in the apothecary is a wide variety and selection of medical cannabis products, anything from flowers to capsules to edibles to CBD oils to, you name it. Whoopi Goldberg has a product line out, and Whoopi and Maya actually work with CannaSense as well, and you can find her products there. So it's like, I have heard people who are, they're like, I've never heard of CannaSense. This sounds illegal. Well, Whoopi Goldberg is working through CannaSense.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, dude. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't get it. So, and what it is, the reason that people are apprehensive is because, here's the thing, Pierce. Think about prohibition of alcohol. In a single day before prohibition was lifted, the day before you were Al Capone. The day after, you're the Kennedys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so where we're at right now, I mean, look, cannabis is winning legally. We are winning. All right? The laws are winning in our favor. The American people are re-educated about the benefits of cannabis. But people are still paranoid, right, about the laws. Okay? So that's where we're at. We're on a frontier of medical cannabis use in this country. So I understand the people who have apprehension. I get it. But, that's cool. Now, when you do get access to the apothecary and you order your medicine, they do ship it to you. They ship it wherever you're at in any of the 50 states, and they do ship overseas. So the big question is, how are they shipping across state lines? And my first question to people who would ask that is, well, why is the burden of proof on me as an American to show you that it's illegal or against the law to ship across state lines when the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution, is very clear on what it says, and cannabis is nowhere mentioned in there, and shipping cannabis across state lines is nowhere mentioned in there. So the burden of proof really, and I'm just speaking as an individual, I'm not speaking for CannaSense. They do have a legal explanation for people who want to know that. I'm telling you as an American who can read the Bill of Rights, you show me why it's illegal. The burden of proof is not on me. And I've heard people say, well, it's federal law. Well, let me ask you this, Pierce. What does the Constitution say federal land is?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
And anybody who's mentioned it to me, they don't know. They assume that a state line is federal territory. Is a state line federal territory? No, it is not.
No.
This is not Star Trek. This is not the demilitarized zone. That's a state issue. It's a state issue. A state line constitutionally is not federal territory. What is federal territory? 10 square miles of Washington, D.C., and any usable land such as a port, a fort, or a magazine. I don't think CannaSense is shipping through forts and ports and magazines. They're shipping across state lines. So this issue of it being a federal deal across state lines, I don't understand it. The burden of proof is on the people who are apprehensive to prove to me that it's against the law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's me as an American. Now, also, we're talking about shipping across state lines and all that. Well, that all falls under the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. Well, that's all well and great. CannaSense is not conducting commerce. It's a non-profit organization. Commerce Clause does not apply here. Okay? So that's how I personally would respond. Now, anybody who wants very detailed legal explanations on how this is all done, you can go to CannaSense, and there is a support button. I have been referencing people to an interview that Jordan Page, he's the public relations guy for CannaSense, and he's a great guy. We all come out of the Ron Paul movement. We all come out of the Liberty movement. That is who is behind CannaSense. Liberty-minded people. People who believe in the Constitution and operate within it. But Jordan Page did an interview with Gary Franke, I want to say 2 weeks ago, where the issue of crossing state lines and the legalities came up. And Jordan Page did an excellent job of explaining it to Gary Franke's audience. And so if anybody's interested in all of that, go to CannaSense's website, cannasense.com, click on Perspectives. You'll see a few interviews with me and quite a few more with Jordan Page. But click on the Gary Franke and he'll do that. If that's still not enough for you, click on the support tab at the top and ask them, send them an email and say, can you give me whatever laws you're using to do X, Y, and Z? And they'll get back to you and they'll let you know. So that's how I would respond to the legalities of it, of them shipping across state lines. Now, as far as like personal use goes, I have said on several shows, I'm a Ninth Amendment type of guy, okay? And the Supreme Court also agrees with me about the Ninth Amendment. And the Ninth Amendment basically says that though the Constitution and the Bill of Rights enumerates certain rights, it's not to be construed that those are the only rights we have, right? So It just means that there's not enough space for the founding fathers to list all of these rights. So, do you have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And does that include your well-being with medical cannabis?
No, yeah, and I don't talk too sort of philosophically or politically on the show all that much anymore. But again, a lot of what you're saying too is all these things are kind of there. They do exist, whether you love the Constitution or you hate it or what. These many of these rights do exist. We've just sort of acquiesced to the state and other institutions and kind of allowed for them to sort of pick and choose what sections of the Constitution are okay. And it's funny you mentioned the Ninth Amendment, and that's one that I think kind of just people sort of forget that one exists.
Yeah.
But it's extreme, and just as it's the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
That's right. Very
Very important, and one that is just sort of, as you said, can become overlooked. But that doesn't mean that you're not entitled to that. And of course, the more we kind of, not poo-poo the Constitution, but sort of take it for granted and allow people in authority to say, oh, well, that doesn't really count, but not for weed. For everything else, it's fine, but marijuana is a whole separate issue, entity. That's sort of like a scary thought.
And I don't want to be like nitpicking you, but I'm doing my best to try to get the word marijuana out of our vernacular. Okay, because marijuana is a legal term for cannabis. Okay, it was used for propaganda. Marijuana is their term. So I'm trying to discourage people from even using that word. The word cannabis it's calamus in the Bible, but just calling it cannabis rather than what they want to call it is going to cause a societal shift in consciousness regarding this healing plant. So let me state that. But as far as the Ninth Amendment goes, you're right. The 13th and the 14th Amendment did not abolish slavery. Okay? It basically expanded the prison. And what it did was allow voluntary servitude, voluntary slavery. Okay? You can, if you read the 13th and 14th Amendment, you see, slavery and involuntary servitude has been abolished. But they left voluntary servitude out of it, which means you can volunteer to be a slave if you wish. And there's an old Roman maxim that said, he who will be deceived, let him be deceived. Okay? If you don't know what the Bill of Rights says, I'm sorry, how can you operate within your sovereign rights as we the people? Well, you can't, because you're ignorant. You don't know what the Bill of Rights says. And I said on another show, and I wasn't able to finish the statement, and so I got jumped on. I got a pocket constitution. I got several. The pocket constitution and the Constitution is indeed just a piece of paper. It is. It is not going to protect my rights. It is not going to enable my rights. It is not going to supply my rights. It just enumerates my friggin' rights. It is my job as an American to look at the Constitution, understand the Constitution, and live the Constitution. Okay? Until you become a walking, talking, breathing Bill of Rights. And I'm a spiritual guy, not religious. I believe the Bill of Rights is a spiritual document. Okay? It comes from scriptures of old. If you really look at it, it's based off the trial of Jesus or Yeshua. Okay? And so to me, it is a spiritual thing. And I live it, breathe it, and I know my rights, and I act within my rights. There's a lot of people out there who fall under the 13th and 14th Amendment, and they have volunteered to be a slave in this country. And I'm sorry that they did that. They did it through ignorance, I'm sure. Some people did it because, look, I'm not lying to you. Freedom does come with risks, and freedom is not cheap. Okay? But it is fulfilling. And the Ninth Amendment is one of those enumerated rights that, if you really understand it, people say, oh, well, it used to be we the people and we were in control, but we're not anymore. Yeah, but with the Ninth Amendment, if you really get it, we can overnight return this country to what it was supposed to be by understanding that the buck doesn't stop in Washington, D.C. The buck doesn't stop at your state capitol building. It doesn't stop at your county courthouse. The buck stops with you, the individual American. With the Ninth Amendment, when it's understood, and it's not difficult to understand, it means that you have the right to nullify unconstitutional laws. And you have the Supreme Court behind you on that. So that's the power of the Ninth Amendment. When it comes to anything that has a license or a fee that contradicts the supreme law of the land, you can ignore those laws with impunity. And so, like, I'm a Ninth Amendment type of guy. If you look at Black's Law Dictionary and you look up statute or act, okay? So let's just put this in the real world, Pierce. If you're driving down the road and you get pulled over and the for-profit law enforcement guy writes you a ticket, he writes a bunch of numbers and dashes. You familiar with this?
Yep. Okay,
that's statutes and acts. Okay, 8-4- subsection B.
Yeah.
That's all state stuff. That's all local stuff. Okay, city ordinances and state ordinances. Well, Black's Law Dictionary says that a statute and an act is only given the force of law by mutual consent. What's that mean? What does that mean?
You both have to agree on the statutes in question, right?
Okay. I haven't had a driver's license since 2012 whenever they enacted the Real ID Act in the state of Georgia, and I haven't gotten one since. You know why? I don't consent.
Didn't agree to it.
I didn't consent. I didn't consent to the point where I wrote the governor a letter and he reported me to the Department of Homeland Security. And guess what? When you're a free American, that will happen. That's going to happen. If you're afraid, okay, go home. If you want to live free, you got to own your rights. And sometimes it comes with a cost. Sometimes it doesn't. And if enough people out there, especially today, we're on the brink of another pointless world war. Okay, if more Americans out there would realize their rights and what our founders gave us, and live in their rights and live as Americans, this stuff wouldn't be happening, and this country would once again become an example to the world. I was talking to a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder last night in Tennessee who's signing up, and we were talking about this stuff. And the thing that came up was you cannot by force make people free or be good or evolve. You have to always do it by example. Okay? America was once, it was a great country, not the government, the people and what we stood for. Okay? A melting pot, a great experiment of freedom from religious authoritarianism and state authoritarianism. America and the idea of America is the most brilliant divine concept that our species has come up with, okay? And even the founding fathers knew that over time it would decay through apathy and through ignorance. You enjoy a certain amount of wealth and you enjoy a certain amount of freedom. A generation goes by, you take it for granted. You don't exercise those rights. And in a few generations, what do you end up with? Well, you end up with a corporation in the District of Columbia that is not the government that our founders gave us. It is a corporation. You have fake elections every few years where a board of directors selects a CEO, and then you got these morons by the masses going out and voting and thinking that that's doing anything. Trump didn't get the popular vote. This is a board of directors that selects the CEO. I know because I was a delegate in the Republican Party. I know exactly how it works. Okay? So all of this overcomplication of our rights and what the law is versus legality has just become so convoluted, it's time for a reboot. And it's not going to, I'm a John Lennon Gandhi type of person. I don't believe in violent revolution. Doesn't work. It's never worked anywhere. You get a violent group of people to overthrow a violent group of people. Whoever's the most violent is going to be in charge. Okay? So I'm the type of a guy who's into peaceful revolution and being peaceful where you can be. Right? And go ahead.
No. Finish what you're saying, Daniel.
I believe that it's not a complicated process. It's a very easy process that our founders enumerated for us, and it's personal liberty. The first person you've got to affect is yourself. You've got to look in the mirror, and you've got to know that you're free. You don't have to ask permission. You need to assume you are free and live in it. And when other people come to you with these machinations of legalities that you can't see in the Bill of Rights, you need to look at them like they're an alien. Because the burden of proof is on other people to prove you're not free. When we get that in our head as a society, that the burden of proof is not on us to be free. It is self-evident. Freedom is self-evident. If you want to restrict my freedoms, and we're talking about cannabis here, if you're going to come at me and tell me, Daniel, you do not have a right to be well. You do not have a right to use a plant that your creator commanded you to use. The burden of proof is on you, buddy. The burden of proof is on you to prove to me that I don't have a right. And then, I'm playing devil's advocate. My first question when people say I'm playing devil's advocate is, why would you take the devil's case, dog? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? That right there is a mentality. And what it is fear, Pierce. People are afraid to be free. They're afraid to be free. And I can't help that. You know, what I can do is just tell you, I'm looking at the Constitution. I'm an American. I'm not a British. I don't hold a British title of nobility with a bar. Okay? I'm a common man at the law of the land, and I'm reading the King's English, and it's simple to me. And I live it. I hope that by example, other people will too, but I can't force people to.
No, and, you know, as you were just speaking there, and I'm sort of, you know, picturing the person, oh, but it's illegal. Oh, my God, it's illegal. I think there's also inherently a misconception that, you know, that what's happening is they're getting shipped, you know, 4 ounces of weed, you know, in a box. And a lot of this too is, I mean, you know, getting away from the concept of cannabis is only something that you smoke. You know, you mentioned before CBD oil. There's almost no, I mean, or no psychoactive properties whatsoever with CBD oil. And that's extracted from cannabis. So, you know, you're not going to get there's no THC, so you're not quote unquote high. You know, there's so many different, applications for cannabis that I think is also one of these misnomers. People are assuming, oh, you're getting, you know, like I said, big old ounce of, you know, weed. Northern Lights or something. Exactly, weed, you know, stinky, sticky weed. That's not really the case for, I would say, a vast sum of people that are using cannabis in a medical sense. That's right. A lot of them are using things like CBD oil. There's all sorts of other extracts. There's pills. There's edibles. There's a million different things. So I think that's another kind of hurdle that you have to get over, especially when you're speaking about, you know, medical uses for cannabis itself. And then, of course, the other thing, too, is, you know, I think we should mention, too, I know you've told me before, but if, you know, if for some reason you are arrested, CannaSense does provide legal expertise, correct?
This is brilliant, and I want to thank you because you did bring up an excellent point that I have failed to bring up in the past, and it's when you become a member, you do get access to the apothecary. If you feel funny about having, say, a hybrid, an indica, or a sativa shipped to you, pick something else, dude. There's a lot of stuff in the apothecary. Pick your CBD oils. But what it's pointing out, those people who are saying that to me, here's what it's pointing out. And I had my brother was talking about this because he's a member too. He said, do you know what I've noticed about your interviews and the pushback that you get for this? I said, what's that? He said, everybody who's pushing back against this are people who don't need it. They don't need it as medicine. They want it recreationally, and they don't need it. Because I'm telling you, dude, I'm talking to people every single day, Pierce, who are in pain. 80% of my patients are 56 years old and up. Yeah. With Parkinson's, with Alzheimer's, with who have seizures, who have cancer. These people don't need all this back and forth. They just go, I need medicine, and I'm an American. I got a right. And so, but if if your thing is that you want to smoke weed legally, then and you've got a problem with it being shipped across state lines, when you join Canna-Sense, don't order that stuff if you feel funny about it. It's not going to stop Canna-Sense from shipping across state lines. But,
right.
If you feel funny about it, And so there's that. So I want to thank you for pointing that out because I've been negligent in that. Now, this is where Canna-Sense gets brilliant. Because these guys are liberty people and they do come out of the Ron Paul movement, they understand what the deal is with cannabis, that it's about money and politics and all of that. And so as a part of being a member of Canna-Sense, you will get a legal defense team in the event that anything happens to you legally. If you're arrested or the state moves on you, your legal team is paid for. We have the Canna-Sense Legal Defense Foundation. So every member, there's 5 charities whenever you join Canna-Sense that gets a certain percentage. One is cancer research, one is children needs, one is hospital care, and one is veteran needs. And, of course, there's the legal defense team. So when you join the collective, you get your card, you get your recommendation. That shields you from about 90% of any scrutiny from law enforcement agents. But in the event that you get in trouble, you have a legal defense team that will come to your aid. Now, I like to walk what I talk, and I have actually been in contact with the state in direct regard to this issue. And I can't give all the details right now. I have, previously, but there's new details, and I can tell you their legal defense teams got your back. Oh, they got your back. Because we're talking about the supreme law of the land. Now any state that is a part of the union has a charter that says they got to go by the supreme law of the land, right? Or else your charter gets pulled and you're no longer a part of the union. In open court of law, if they violate the supreme law of the land, it's the same thing as your driver's license getting suspended. So you have that, and so these attorneys do come with a legal defense team if you ever get in trouble with Canna-Sense or with cannabis use as a medicine. So yeah, there's that security there. Like I said, with all of these different types of things that Canna-Sense has figured out to protect you as an American, and to get you access to clean medicine, it's just a win-win-win in all of those areas for patients, but it's also a win in the idea of freedom and liberty, and power being in us, the people, that now with Canna-Sense, to me, it's the cannabis movement, the cannabis activists. Now we have teeth. Now we got a good set of teeth, and all we really need to do is set a precedent in a state or two, and that may be coming. But I would like to note that in the history of Canna-Sense, no one has been arrested. There hasn't been a single instance of any legal problems whatsoever. Because if you were a judge, say in Georgia, would you want us to be the judge that allows a precedent to be set in a state where people up the state capitol have a lot of money invested in it not having a precedent in their state? You don't want to be that judge. But if you want to be somebody's Huckleberry, step up.
Yeah. I also, this is, the more sort of cynical person in me, but it's what, the cops are going to stop some 80-year-old Parkinson's patient from getting CBD oil, but they can't stop, literally tons of cocaine from, coming over the border into Mexico and dispersing all over the U.S. It's just, you also have to wonder where their priorities really stand. Yeah. Just be realistic about this as well.
Yeah, see, that's another thing. And me and Chuck Ocelli are friends and everything, but he's trying to go over all of his bases with it. And last time we spoke about it, he was afraid that this may be some big thing with the federal government, and it's going to get all of us on a RICO. Well, a RICO? What is a RICO? It's racketeering.
Yeah.
What? No, this is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The government's well aware. Okay. So it's not a racketeering deal, but in my imagination, I'm like, okay, let's play that out logically. I got boots on the ground in this. I'm talking to these people every day, so I know who they are. And I'm imagining like DEA in the event that that's so across the country raiding everybody on walkers and wheelchairs and on dialysis, and like my mom who has COPD. Like, the DEA is going to raid everybody in CannaSense who's a freaking senior citizen. Mm. It's going to be epic. That'd be a great media thing, right? That's really going to help the war on drugs here, is raiding a ton of senior citizens and veterans who, it's like in my mind, I'm picturing this, and it doesn't make any sense. The CannaSense makes sense to me, but raiding a bunch of people with Parkinson's and autism and kids with autism doesn't make any sense to me.
No, of course. And when you figure there's just so much, heroin, cocaine, meth, and weed as well, coming over the border, mostly in Mexico. But, Daniel, we're coming up towards the end of the first hour, and I want you to really give the listeners a sense of what your role as a caregiver is, and the sorts of people that you are helping to treat. Because again, and I think we'll talk about this more in the second hour, the sort of medical cannabis movement gets overshadowed a lot by the legalization movement. Mm-hmm. I think we'll kind of dive into why that is and how that's happening in the second hour. But tell us a little bit, because I think a lot of people in need of medical cannabis are sort of like the unsung heroes. They're sort of brushed aside, and people admit, oh yes, of course it works for all these things, but it's really just a ploy or some sort of a trick or something. So give the listeners a sense of the types of people that you're dealing with and what you do as a caregiver.
As a caregiver, what I do is I reach out, and thankfully I have a medium in which I can do that, to get this information out to people, like I'm doing on your show. So what I'm doing on your show is a part of my role as a caregiver. Is one, to get the information out. Two, to find the answers that people are looking for. I get people who ask questions, like, can this help this ailment or this disorder or fibromyalgia or this? My job as a caregiver is to find those answers for them, give them those answers, or point them in the direction of those answers. And then when they make a decision to take their well-being in their own hands, my job is to, because like I said, most of my patients are 56 and over, so they're not technologically savvy as much as, say, you or me. They maybe can work a computer, but, it's difficult for them. So my job is to hold them by the hand and walk them through this process of uploading the proper documents, scheduling their appointment via telemedicine. And we do that every day. Me and the people who are working with me, we do it every day. We're on the phone for hours with a senior citizen or somebody in need to teach them what Skype is, because you don't do your doctor's appointment through Skype, but it's very much like Skype. So that's what I do is explain the program to them, guide them through to get them their medical card, get them their recommendation, get them into CannaSense, and just educate, really, and care for them. And that's my role as a caregiver. But I could tell you, dude, this is, we got 10 minutes, maybe I can get it out. I was very passionate about cannabis use ever since I lost my dad, because I lost him due to over-the-counter medications. Not even prescription stuff, man. Mm. Over-the-counter pain relievers is what took my dad from me. And what was ironic about it was, before I lost him, he had arthritis in his hip that was extremely painful, and it was hard to watch, And I said, Dad, if I got you some cannabis, would you use it for pain? And this is a guy who, he was, born in 1934. So I skipped a generation with my parents. My parents weren't hippies,
Yeah, right.
So he didn't use it ever coming up. And so, but he was in so much pain. He said, yes, son, if you can get me some, I would use it for this pain. And I had to go through the legal debates in my mind, as well as the religious objections in my mind, because I was a Baptist at the time. And while that debate was going, and while I was trying to find some on the black market, he passed. He developed an ulcer due to acetaminophen, over-the-counter stuff, and I lost him. And I remember being so enraged that he could have went to his doctor and got a prescription for legal cocaine, and that would have been fine. And he could take it as much as he wants, and that would have been fine. but a plant that was created by a creator, whatever you believe in, was illegal and would put him and me in jail if he were to use it. So I became passionate then about it. And even more passionate when my mom is a 2-time cancer survivor, and we went the homeopathic route. She's been cancer-free, not in remission, free, since 2007. That was with a diagnosis of 6 months to live, bro. 6 months to live. And we go homeopathic, and she's been cancer-free since 2007. So that made me even more impassioned about cannabis and homeopathy. But since I have been a caregiver with Canna-Sense, and I'm on the phone and I'm talking through email to these people across the country, I'm not joking, dude. These people, it's very, very humbling. They are calling me things like a hero, a messenger, an emissary, and I'm like, no. It's all of us together that are going to do this. But their stories are so heartbreaking. And when they hear about Canna-Sense and that they can get access to medical cannabis, they're to listen to the sound of hope in their voice, to know that you have given somebody a second shot at life is so fulfilling. It makes you get up in the morning on fire, that you are really, really, really making a difference in human beings' lives. So I'm dealing with these people on a daily basis, and I'm watching lives change. I'm listening to lives change, man. Somebody who has PTSD, I can't tell you what that is. And this country, we sit here and we talk a good game about veterans, man. Oh, yeah, we love veterans. We send them off to all these countries for God and country and apple pie. They come back broken with scars we can't see. And we let the VA handle them. Oh, yeah, the VA handles them all right. VA handles them. Puts them on all kinds of psychotropic crap that just makes them worse and breaks their spirit. They need our help. You know, and like I was talking to this vet last night, I live in an Air Force town, and these guys suck off the tip of that Air Force base, and you can't go anywhere in this city where it's not, we love the Air Force, we love veterans, it's all about the veterans. I could walk less than half a mile to a broken down Kmart, and behind that Kmart is a tent city of veterans. But every day in Middle Georgia is Air Force Appreciation Day. Kiss my ass. Kiss my ass. So, you know, this is transcending legality and law. This is, are we as Americans going to do what's right for people who are downtrodden in our country? I mean, the Statue of Liberty says, give me your weak and your downtrodden and your outcast, and we're letting them rot in this country. And for a large part of the population, cannabis is a solution. So, you know, that's who I'm talking to, is people. These aren't people who want to smoke pot and watch The Wizard of Oz and listen to Pink Floyd at the same time. I'm not. And I'm asking a lot of my patients for permission to post their emails so people can get an idea of what this is about. This is not about recreational pot smoking. This is about medicine. This is about healing our nation and healing people who need it, man. And, you know, that's why I'm very, 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 very passionate about this, because, you know, I'm empathic by nature. I can feel other people's pain, dude. I empathize with people. And I cry every day tears of joy and sadness and hope. And, you know, I believe in a bigger thing, a universe, a God, whatever.
Oh, well, no, we're at the break right now. We will be returning in the second hour for a bit more of a discussion with Daniel Louis Crumpton about CannaSense, about cannabis culture, and what is in store for it all. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
I like very much radio. You're an American institution. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me. American Freedom Radio, Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Did you know there are 3 million edible food plants on Earth, and none have the nutritional value of the hemp plant? HempUSA.org offers you hemp protein powder. It does not contain chemicals or THC, is non-GMO, and is 100% gluten-free. Hemp protein powder burns fat, builds muscle, contains 53% protein, and feeds the body the nutrients it needs. Call 888-910-4367 and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org. HempUSA.org introduces 3 brand new detox formulations of micro plant powder. Brain Fuel for depression, bipolar disorders, and stress. Total Care, anti-cancer agent that cleans the liver and organs and increases memory. Rejuvenate, invigorates and heals the body, mind, and spirit. These products are your alternative to pharmaceuticals. Call 888-910-4367 and like us on Facebook. We ship worldwide. Only at HempUSA.org.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
What about show business? Show business, completely dishonest, corrupt, and full of shit, but in a nice way. Plenty of expensive drugs and perverted sex. If you're going to be full of shit, might as well enjoy your work. Then you have the media. Not just the news media, let's include them all. The media are almost literally exploding with bullshit because they're located right at the crossroads of all the other bullshit. The media are made up of equal parts advertising, politics, business, public relations, and show business. These people are sitting right at bullshit junction. There's enough bullshit in the media for Texas to open a branch office. And you still have enough left over to start 2 law firms and a Christian bookstore.
What has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Provide us with free education?
Well, that's obviously effective, but apart from reversing the dumbing down of America...
All the information they provide is free?
What about the free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, man?
Exploiting commonplace corruption?
They help vulnerable people who don't have a voice?
Bringing light to important information nobody else does.
Or they never censor, hang up, or cut off their guests? Well, that's no fun, is it?
Oh, they created a fantastic alternative media source during an era of bad, manipulative, and infiltrated mainstream and alternative media shows and scum.
Okay, well, apart from the free education, free information, free podium for broadcast activists to speak from, exposing commonplace corruption, helping vulnerable people without a voice, bringing light to important information nobody else does, and creating a fantastic commercial-free alternative media source in a sea of bad, manipulative mainstream and alternative media shills and scum, what has American Freedom Radio ever done for us?
Donate to American Freedom Radio today. No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are just joining us in the second hour, we are joined by Daniel Louis Crumpton, who is a writer, a filmmaker, a podcaster, and we've been talking mainly about his work with Canna-Sense, which is a very interesting nonprofit that helps give medical cannabis to everybody in all 50 states. Regardless of, where they are or any of those other sorts of, questions that may come to mind. And Daniel, we finished the first hour, we were talking about, a lot of the people, that you deal with as a caregiver through CannaSense. And again, I think it's important to reiterate that there are a lot of people out there suffering very serious medical, be they physical or, emotional problems, diseases, there's so many different applications for cannabis. And again, a lot of that gets sort of, skipped over. People kind of forget that there are all these wonderful medical uses. I mean, from things like, reducing cancer cells to, just really just changing people's lives. Even if it's as simple as they're finally able to eat. Because they're on chemo or all these other, poisons essentially, used to kill cancer, they can just finally eat again, and this is like AIDS patients. There's so many different things. And I briefly just, also wanted to mention too, for any of the naysayers out there, although I doubt that they're listening to, our conversation, but like, within your own body, you have all these special receptors and things built into your own, body. That respond to cannabis. So your body was designed, be it by, God, evolution, spaghetti monster, whatever you believe in, your body was designed, in fact, to interact with this plant. Which you just sort of, keep that in mind, especially if people are kind of poo-pooing, your ideas or what you're saying about cannabis and things like that. Remind them that our bodies were designed to ingest this plant.
Yeah, you come equipped with a cannabinoid endocrine system. So, dude, your body's already familiar with it. And, like the Bible says in Genesis 1, I've given all of these things to you for meat, which doesn't mean meat. It means to consume, to eat, to take into your body in one way or the other. So, and that's because, think if you will about the Bible, but it knew that you have the cannabinoid endocrine system. You're born with it. So, and
that's like across the board. That's not like isolated, populations. That's like, people living in, Alaska and people living in, Afghanistan where they grow weed. Like, this is across the board.
Yeah, this isn't in Baptist circles. This is Homo sapien. They have that system.
Yes, exactly. With that out of the way, I did want to kind of talk a little bit about the legalization movement. As I was saying in the first hour, that kind of steals the spotlight from, say, the medical movement with cannabis. And, this is becoming more and more socially acceptable. Just a day ago, there was a recent poll done by CBS that showed an all-time high in support of legalization with 61% in favor of legalizing cannabis.
Right.
Now, this is huge. For anyone that's been following the legalization movement or just simply been, a fellow person in the cannabis culture. I mean, this is huge. This is becoming like even, my parents are kind of coming around to the idea that it's just going to happen. Of course, the numbers start to, increase with people who are opposed to this as you get older, but across the board, it's becoming more and more normal. We've got now 8 or 9 states, including the District of Columbia, that have legalized cannabis for recreational use. More and more states are, of course, making, all sorts of medical exceptions. And even here in New York, which I thought would be like one of the last states to ever accept any kind of, decriminalization or things like that, there are actually medical cannabis stores here even in New York City itself. Although they're very restrictive in terms of, like the qualifications to get it. It's all non-smokable forms, but still, it is happening. But what do you make, Daniel, of the cannabis culture as it exists today? Because I will find that, obviously, I'm in favor of all drugs being legal. Just as a moral sort of a question, and then you can get into fighting organized crime and all these other things. But, obviously I believe all drugs should be legal. There should be no restrictions on those things. But I do find sometimes that, or lately more, the cannabis culture has kind of become a bit cultish, where smoking weed becomes like the answer. Perpetually high is like protesting against the state and the system. Mm-hmm. And, I just want to get your take on that. Where do you see cannabis culture right now?
Okay. Me personally, I don't have a problem with people using cannabis recreationally. Okay. I don't believe in legislating freedom. So I don't have a problem with that. But honestly, if you really ask me, if you have lived through the September 11th thing, if you're in this country, you're screwed up. And you have been traumatized, okay? So I am of the opinion that everyone really is a little screwed up and can really benefit from cannabis. And that's not a doctor saying that. That's me. As far as legalization movement, I am 100% against legalizing cannabis. I don't want it done. I do not want cannabis legalized. And the reason I say that is because then you get into areas of who controls it, who patents certain strains, I don't want it legalized. I don't want it controlled by the state. And like, for example, the 10 Commandments in the Bible basically is you don't even have to read the Bible. It's in other documents too, in Egypt and stuff. The 10 Commandments are based off of some stuff from Egypt. Everything that's in the 10 Commandments is in your heart anyway. Don't steal. Don't lie. Don't kill. Things like that, right? So what government does when they legalize something or make it legal is they allow immorality. For example, is it legal for a police officer to lie to you?
They get away with it. Yeah, it is legal, isn't it? Right? Yeah, exactly.
The Supreme Court has said it is legal for them to do something immoral, lie to you. Mm-hmm. Is it legal for the government to put a rifle in an 18-year-old's hands and that person go and kill other people? Is that legal?
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course. So I don't like that word, and I don't want it being legalized. I don't want cannabis being legalized because, right now we know, Clive Lewis brought this up, you've got Monsanto and Bayer who are about to merge. And they are telling us that they're not going to get into creating GMO cannabis, but we know that's a lie. We know that they're doing things in Uruguay right now to genetically modify things. And actually, you're going to see cannabis removed from Schedule 1 faster than you think. And the reason that is because Monsanto wants it removed as a Schedule 1 narcotic. Okay? Monsanto wants that, and therefore it's going to happen. Okay? Because they got the money, dude, and they got the lobbyists, and so it will be removed very, very soon, quicker than people think. And so with that, we are in a foot race, like I said on Ground Zero. We are in a foot race right now regarding this plant. And I think Canna-Sense is an avenue for us to win that foot race. But I don't want it legalized because I don't want the government control. I want to be able to grow it in my yard without scrutiny. I don't want people like or companies like Monsanto regulating it. Like you were talking about in New York, you can get XYZ form, but it's under strict, whatever. And so I don't want any of that. I want cannabis decriminalized. Okay? And ultimately, the fastest way that I believe is going back to the first hour is the Ninth Amendment. The Supreme Court has ruled that if an unconstitutional law is ever passed, that you do not have to take it and have it branded unconstitutional in a court of law at all. So people have their minds, well, we got to take it to the courts and we got to take it to our state capitals. But the Supreme Court says you don't have to do that. It said that an unconstitutional law that's passed is already a nullity or a fiction of law. So they can write whatever laws they want to. And if you choose to go by that, okay. But the Supreme Court's on my side. And the Supreme Court has ruled that any law that's written that comes in conflict with the supreme law of the land isn't even a law at all. So I don't want anything legalized because it's not illegal as far as I'm concerned.
No, I actually completely 100% agree. I don't know how you can make something like, it's like saying corn is legal. Of course it is. It's just a given. Pretty much all plants are legal. And I know that it's getting kind of, it's in the more sort of philosophical legal argument, but I'm actually extremely nervous about the direction that the legalization movement is going, because it will become this corporatized industry where a small, look at like beer, right now, liquor. Mm-hmm. It's really owned by like 3 or 4 companies. It's like InBev, Anheuser, and the group that owns Heineken and a few others. Mm-hmm. But they control pretty much all beer and liquor and soft drinks in general.
That's right.
And they're all filled with mostly corn and stuff that's grown by Monsanto seeds. And cannabis will obviously go in that direction if they have any say over it.
That's what they want.
Again, you brought up the Bayer-Monsanto deal. Bayer has been researching cannabis for years and years. So you marry that with Monsanto, and you get some sort of like Roundup ready strain of weed. You don't want to be smoking that. And the other thing too is, taxation. Why, they're going to tax the shit out of cannabis if they, that's my only other problem too with a lot of the states that are legalizing it. I think it's I think it's great in practice, but then to have, like you said, I want to be able to just grow it in my backyard or on my roof or in my room, that's the type of, that's the type of problem that I see with a lot of the legalization movement is essentially let's legalize it and then let's basically make the government being ultimate arbiters of where it can be grown, how much can be grown, what's put into the seeds, what's put on the plants itself, chemicals and all those sorts of things. And, there's the regulations behind it too. It's sort of like, you can grow this X amount of plants, but you can't go over that. If you go over it, you're somehow breaking the law. Again, do they like stop you from growing flowers in your garden? Well, I think, is there a law about how many flowers you can grow?
I think the best way to envision legalization of cannabis is to look at the tobacco industry. How many people die because, it's legal. Cigarettes are completely legal.
Yeah.
And tobacco is not really the thing that's causing all these health problems. It's the additives that, but it's legal. It's a controlled thing. And it's tweaked and it's killing people by the droves, So legalization of cannabis to me, if big corporations and hey, the tobacco companies are looking into cannabis too, dude. They can see what's happening. Do we want that type of a situation with cannabis? I don't want it being perverted. I remember a few years ago in Georgia, there was this fad where you could go buy this incense that was synthetic marijuana or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Dude, just out of curiosity as a scientist, I tried that crap out.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Oh my
K2
God.
And spice, yeah.
Dude, you can kiss my ass. That is not marijuana. That stuff, no, dude. So I don't want that, man. I do not want legalization at all. And, you know, I do deal with Peachtree NORML here in Georgia. I appreciate what they're doing. I think that what they're doing is bringing awareness. But then again, they're still kowtowing to the government and waiting for permission from the government to do something they already have a right to do. So I'm wholeheartedly against legalization. I want us as a people, because look, here's the deal, Pierce. If you look at the younger generation, okay, well, when you were younger and you would look up at the establishment, I got news for you, dude. Now us, people our age, we are the establishment.
Yeah, right.
We're going to become the establishment more as we grow older. Okay? We don't have to look at the ones ahead of us. We need to look at the ones coming up underneath us, that generation. All right? That's how we do it. We need to educate the younger people about the health benefits of cannabis and what laws are and what it is to be an American and stuff like that. And then they eventually will become the establishment. And so that's the way that I like to look at this. So, yeah, the legalization movement, I think, is kind of going the wrong route. I get where they're coming from, but I think it's a little misguided. Now, I do know people who are very informed and well-spoken like myself, and they said, well, I understand all that, but I do want it controlled because I want to know that there's a consistency in the quality. Like if I go to the liquor store and pick up Jack Daniels, I know what to expect with every bottle. And so they are for it for that reason. But for the most part, people who are in the legalization movement don't think in that way. You know, they're thinking of, I just want to, not get arrested every 5 minutes for it. But legalization is the wrong avenue, in my opinion.
No, I like you said, I think a decriminalization of it, just simply making it so that it's not a crime to possess it or even to sell, or to grow it or something. I think, because again, there's I think it's a misguided, because there is some truth to it that if we were to legalize, drugs, then that means that the drug cartels don't necessarily, aren't going to be raking in the sorts of profits that they are. But again, that's a little bit not, I think that's a longer process. All you might do is just legitimize drug cartels. Mm-hmm. Is that really what you want to do? I mean, if suddenly cocaine became legal, I don't think that, the Gulf Cartel and, Sinaloa and the Los Zetas and all of the, La Familia, all these smaller cartels are suddenly, oh, you know what, guys? We got to stop, they'll legitimize themselves. They'll still be selling cocaine. The problem is not that cocaine is legal or illegal. The problem is that for a vast number of reasons, America is the largest consumer of cocaine. And that has a lot more to do with, socio-political, economic. There's all sorts of other factors. But, by making it no longer a crime, you're cutting down a lot, but you're not really solving everything. People forget. Basically, all drugs are quote unquote legal in Mexico. Mm-hmm. You won't get arrested for. I mean, I think it's small amounts, but anything, meth, heroin, coke, weed, crack, anything. You're not. There's no crime about possessing them, but that doesn't mean that drug violence is non-existent in Mexico.
Right.
So I think it's more a matter of, like you said, kind of just making it acceptable, just sort of normalizing it to a point where it's common to see people just growing weed on their windowsill.
Well, let's put it in a practical and realistic situation here. I believe in natural remedies and homeopathy, and I go to a natural health food store and I pick up supplements every 2 weeks or so. I pick up things like DMAE, L-tryptophan, vitamin C, vitamin B, all sorts of vitamins, right? And then when I turn on the news, I don't see any vitamin C activist groups lobbying to decriminalize taking vitamin C or all these other herbs and extracts. However, Codex Alimentarius is a law. It has made these natural things illegal. It's on the books. That vitamin shop that I go to is technically and legally, based off of Codex Alimentarius, selling contraband. But the shop is still running, and I still purchase my vitamins. What's the difference? Oh, well, it's because they're not enforcing Codex Alimentarius. But it's still illegal, dude. So it's like, okay, it's on the books that these certain supplements need to be regulated. These people are still selling it. I'm still purchasing it. I'm still taking it. But there's no big movement to decriminalize. Why? Because nobody's enforcing that stupid crap.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it's the same deal with cannabis. If we as a people stop thinking that there's all this obstacle course we've got to go through, like the old Nickelodeon Double Dare show.
Yeah.
And just go, oh, wait a second, and it'll stop getting enforced. Most of your police, they agree with us, okay? They agree with us. They don't want to be putting people behind bars, most of them now. I can't speak for all of them because that's not true. Some are Nazis, I'm just not going to lie. Over a plan. They don't want to be enforcing that crap. And they need our help as Americans. They really do, because they don't teach police officers the law. They don't teach them the Constitution. They don't. Not anymore. They don't know it. Most of your attorneys and lawyers don't know the law, dude. They don't. I mean, when I went to go to an arraignment for a city ordinance violation, I demanded a jury trial, and the attorneys in the room and the judge had to call a recess because they were perplexed and did not know if I actually had a right to a jury trial at all. And had to recess the court and get back with me at a later date. And when I showed them the Constitution where it says in any controversy over $20, you're guaranteed a right to a jury trial, they told me, these are people who passed the bar, bro, who have tried and determined the fates of cases and human beings for years. And they told me that they'd never seen that before. And I'm looking at them like, you've never seen the Bill of Rights before? And
right,
so no longer can we be idle and trust that they know what's in our best interest and they're looking out for our best interest. They don't even know what's in their best interest. They don't even know what's lawful to do. So it's our time to really make a statement, and it's not got to be violent. You ain't got to be all loud about it. And, like I told somebody, I said, look, dude, let's say you get you go through the Canna-Sense program and you get your medical ID card and all that. Most of the people who use it as a medicine, I mean, I don't see like hydrocodone rallies out there. I don't see people chewing hydrocodone on the street and and you don't see it with cannabis either. You don't see it in states where it's recreational and medicinal. You just don't see it. People are discreet about it. It's not that big of a deal, right? And so you could treat it that way. But if you're going to be an idiot and say you're at your public park and you get stopped by a cop and you pull out your medical cannabis ID card and you throw it at the cop's face and hit him in the nose, you're not going to have a good day, Pierce.
Yes.
It's going to be a bad day for you, dude. So don't be an idiot.
Right.
One of the assumptions of being an American is that with freedom comes responsibility. And so, be responsible. So that's kind of what I don't know how we got off on that, but I hope it ties together nicely.
No, absolutely. And, I just sort of echo that too. I mean, it's legal to drink in all 50 states, but it's, that doesn't mean that you need to walk down the middle of the street with a, bottle of Sobieski in your hand, screaming at the top of your lungs. Like, you will get arrested in pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Outside of, Nevada and Missouri and a few other places. The same goes for, for cannabis as well. Or at least be discreet when you're doing it, if you're going to do it out in public.
Yeah.
And another just quick thing, and then we can shift gears a little bit, but, two quick things. One, that this whole issue of potency, and I want to make sure that that's why we need these regulations and things like that. Look, I've been smoking weed for quite some time. And yes, obviously, you can buy, crappy weed, you can buy really good weed and all these things. But by and large right now, the potency is fairly high and fairly regular. There's so many dispensaries all over the United States plus people just, growing genuinely good weed, that, look how it sort of flourished without regulation. Now, yes, obviously, there are still places where you're getting just kind of crappy weed, or what have you. And some people like that too. What are we supposed to, we're not supposed to have that anymore? But, and also too with the regulations. I mean, look at the way the government regulates things like, say, alcohol, which is all made with, GMO altered crops for the most part. Was that healthy for you? And look at, you look at, what do you want, the FDA in charge of, cannabis? I mean, look how many people they're killing every day, not just with painkiller addictions, but, the new thing now is an antidepressant that works with your antidepressant to make that original antidepressant a little bit better. Yet that's still killing people. If you're over a certain age, you're going to commit suicide when you take it. Are you going to have this problem, that problem? I mean, the government regulations of medicine and food and stuff doesn't make them any safer. Yeah. And again, how many weed-related deaths are out there based on, bad growing techniques or things like that? It just doesn't happen. The market, and I hate saying the free market will solve all the problems, because it doesn't. But in this case, it does kind of work out. There's not going to, you're not going to make it as a weed dealer or distributor if your product is really terrible.
Yeah.
And the tastes of people have kind of come to, where it's almost like wine now in terms of taste, smell, look, color, all these sorts of, it's become so, it's like chic to be into cannabis on that level.
Yeah, and I'm not even though I'm a big proponent for cannabis, I'm not a cannabis connoisseur, okay? You're talking about people who can smell it and go, oh, that's purple herbal, or this is grown in the fields of Canada. I'm not one of those guys. I just know that it helps me as a medicine. But I love hip-hop music. I love Wiz Khalifa. Mm-hmm. And so if you know Wiz Khalifa, every song is about weed almost. Yeah. And that dude is a connoisseur, and I think that's great. But, I don't know. I mean, I usually I'll take a sativa in the morning and an indica at night. I can't tell the difference between potency. But as far as potency goes, the only thing that's ever bothered me about something that was disturbing is that synthetic crap that was out a few years ago. I guess it's still out in some places, not in Georgia. That is the only thing that ever gave me any concern. Okay? But as far as potency out here on the streets, I live in Warner Robins. I think that there is a connection between the fact that Georgia has the biggest private prison company, industry in the nation, as well as the largest crystal meth problem. I'm pretty sure there's a connection there. And we live next to one of the world's biggest logistic Air Force bases, so call me conspiratorial. But I think there's something going on there. And I know that most of the people in the black market here in Georgia behind gas stations and under bridges, the stuff that they sell cannabis-wise is the least on their category of drugs. I'm not saying cannabis is a drug, but those guys, yeah, sure, you can get some cannabis from them, but it's not going to be 1 or 2 visits before they try to push off some crystal on you or some type of prescription thing. So cannabis is not a gateway. It's that dude down the street. Okay. Yeah. He's the gatekeeper because now this is new to me. But evidently this has been going on for decades. They spraying cannabis with, embalming fluid. Yeah. Whoa. You okay? So no, thank you. And that's another reason that I'm down with Canna-Sense is because when you order from them, you get farm grown, completely clean medical cannabis. And you don't have to worry that it's been treated or that it's GMO or anything like that. It's just very high quality, clean cannabis. And, that's another great thing about that program is you're not having to contribute to criminal elements in your community at all. And to me, that is perfect because I have to see a lot of people who are addicted to crystal meth in my town, man. And it is an epidemic. It is a frickin' epidemic. And if people who were in need of cannabis and stuff didn't have to go to those guys who were distributing it, it would take care of itself. That problem would take care of itself. Everybody would know that's not the weed guy. That's the guy peddling poison over there. And, so as far as potency, I mean, I haven't noticed, I know that they say that like the cannabis today is more potent than it was in the 70s and all that good stuff. I can't really tell that much of a difference. I know different strains do different things for me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, whenever you do see your doctor with Presto Doctor, if you tell your doctor what ailments you have, be it headaches or insomnia or PTSD or whatever, he will put you on a treatment plan and tell you the specific strain that is best for your condition to get to optimize your life. So you're seeing a medical professional who's going to tell you this is the potency that you need, this is the strain that I recommend, and this is the consistency that you need to use your medicine. So, that it comes with that too, which I think is fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I like I said before, I think this is a really wonderful idea and wonderful program. And again, it what I like about it too is that it offers a different sort of a route as opposed to, as we were saying before, the complete legalization, corporatization of cannabis and things like that. There are other ways around that, and there are other methods by which you can get it out there. Like I would love to wake up, tomorrow and just everyone using CannaSense and it's just sort of accepted. Or to wake up in a world where everyone is just sort of, if it was so decentralized that everyone was just sort of growing weed, I mean, there'd be, there wouldn't be an issue, the potency, all these sorts of things. I mean, you would just have enough out there. It wouldn't matter. You could just make, you could have your own. But anyway, anything else, Daniel, before we kind of leave it on the cannabis stuff? I mean, there's also, of course, the specter of Jeff Sessions lurking in the background. He is not a big supporter of cannabis. And I was saying, when we were during the break recently, Governor Hickenlooper over in Colorado had a meeting with Jeff Sessions, and I believe it was the governors of all of the states that have legalized cannabis, and he said there's really nothing to worry about, that it's not very high on Jeff Sessions' list of priorities, although given the current state the administration is in, I can see them scapegoating and possibly going after it. And then you've got these, fat bastards like Louis Christie, who the other day was talking about the stupidity of those advocating for legalization and that it's a gateway drug and we've got an opioid epidemic and it'll only get worse if everyone is smoking weed, apparently. So anything you kind of want to leave on or nitpick with anything I was just saying?
That dude ain't got no place to talk, that dude. Anyway, I don't really... Yeah.
The thought that this fat fucker is like reprimanding people on like health concerns. Get on a damn treadmill.
Yeah, dude. It's like, shut the fuck up. You ain't got nothing to say about health to me.
Yeah.
But I don't really care about those guys. I think everything that we covered with personal nullification kind of takes them out of the loop. And to me, it's a game show. It's a soap opera. And I think that if you focus your attention on Jeff Sessions and Donald Trump and all these people, it's the same as watching The Young and the Restless. I know a lot of home wives or housewives who will watch soap operas or have watched soap operas for years and will get off on the phone with each other after that soap opera is over with and discuss in all seriousness what happened at whatever company in The Young and the Restless with Victor Newman. And so to me, that thing that's happening in D.C. is another soap opera, and we just need to change the channel. That's why I stopped paying attention to politics, and I don't care, dude. I don't care about those guys and what they have to say. Now, I would like to note that in Florida, which is just south of me, I can't think of his name, but it's on my Facebook wall. We just had a landmark court decision there where a guy was cultivating cannabis plants in his home. He had 47 plants, and he was arrested, okay? And he didn't do like most Americans and cop a plea deal. He said, not guilty, jury trial. I'm big into jury nullification. I don't understand when you go down to your courthouse, you have a room filled with people, they're all saying, no contest or guilty. Dude, you have a right to a jury trial. If everybody in a county or a whatever that is called for, cattle call, said not guilty, jury trial, and clogged up the court system with these victimless frickin' crimes and utilized their rights, you wouldn't have an issue. So this guy in Florida did that. He said, not guilty, jury. And a jury acquitted the guy. Landmark in Florida. A jury acquitted this guy for cultivating 47 plants for his own medical, I think he had anorexia, so he couldn't keep food down. And so that right there, it just happened in this past week or so, I commend that guy for being a hero, an American hero, man, who said, I'm going to utilize every avenue of my rights and change things for the better. And I'm pretty sure that brush fire that trial set is going to spark up into Georgia and hopefully hit your Bible Belt, because, you're getting a lot of trouble with cannabis from the Bible Belt and people who are of that persuasion. So I was really excited about that. So I say I don't really, we need to bring things back to a local and personal level. And if you've got a right to a jury trial, use it, man. What makes you think that you
absolutely. And I just echo that. And again, too, that the winds are changing. This is becoming something that people are just going to have to accept as a reality. And I think that more and more people are kind of waking up, not only to the benefits of, cannabis in a medical sense, but also just the fact that it's really not all that terrible. We were just mentioning cigarettes, opioids, crystal meth, alcohol. Although those four right there are killing way more people, not just in America, around the world, on a daily basis. And I think more and more people are kind of realizing that a lot of this sort of reefer madness propaganda, it's just that. It's just propaganda. It's all BS. And a lot of it super racist. Just meant to subjugate certain people, of course, and protect other people. So I think more and more people are waking up to that, which is always a good thing.
And I'm a spiritual guy. I talk about the third eye and chakras and metaphysics and meditation. And I also believe that it is that the demonization of cannabis is a spiritual thing too, because it will cause an enlightened society, in my opinion. You never heard of a bar fight over cannabis. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You don't, But let me wrap up Canna-Sense. I want to read to you and your audience. This is a real email, okay?
Yeah.
Just to kind of cap off Canna-Sense and what it's doing. And I get these emails like this. Dude, it's insane. But I'm not going to give the names of the people here. But it says, I appreciate all that you and the founders of Canna-Sense are doing to spread the word about the medicinal uses and availability of the herb. I live in Florida. I almost did not click on Clyde Lewis' show on 420. That information that you shared and medicine has the potential to change the overall quality of my mom's life and my life, because her health and welfare affect me. Now, let me preface. Me and this guy have been going back and forth. His mom is 80 years old with Parkinson's. So just to give you an idea of what he's talking about. He, like myself, is a caretaker for his mom. So he continues, it's so distressing to see her in constant anxiety and constant pain. And I know it's distressing for her to be in that situation as well. She does not take any painkillers other than Tylenol, because the opioids are fraught with a myriad of problems, as you already know. That radio show, you and the organization you are working with could end up being a true blue miracle to help change my mom's life and my life. As you know, God puts us all on this planet for a purpose. Spreading the word about all this may be your purpose or be part of your purpose, because this product and the access to it and the information can indeed change people's lives in a huge way. And then he goes on. And so his 80-year-old mom joined, and he says, once again, P.S., you are doing a great thing. You are changing lives for people who have no other way to change and get better. You are a miracle worker, no joke. So I get that every day. I don't get shit from Jeff Sessions. I don't get shit from Chris Christie. I don't get shit from my governor. I don't get shit from my sheriff, dude. I get that every day. Okay? So, and like I told him and his mom, I said, you and your mom are revolutionaries. You guys are pioneers in this, man. Because you're taking this into your own hands, and I think it's fantastic. So to cap it off, anybody out there who's interested, you want to be a part of this, go to downloadedcontent.com, click on the CannaSense Total Wellness page, get educated there. And if you need help with it, if you have questions, fill out the contact form. And me or another caregiver, I have 2 caregivers that are working with me to go through those. So if you want to get in, want to change things, you really want to be a part of a movement, a peaceful movement that's doing something for the greater good, contact me. And I have no problem helping you. Just be patient, because I'm, it may take like 3 or 4 days, because I am trying to reach everybody personally. And like this, the veteran I spoke to last night, when I got on the phone with him, he's like, dude, is it really you? I can't believe I'm talking to you. And I said, hey man, I just put my pants on like you do. I've had a hard knock life, man. I've had some bumps and some bruises in life, and I know what it's like out there. I'm just a human being, and really the heroes out there to me are people like this guy taking care of his 80-year-old mom, who aren't afraid of Jeff Sessions and aren't afraid of Chris fucking Christie, and people like that. So that's all I got to say about that.
No, excellent. Sound advice, and I do hope anyone out there who's listening either right now live or later, and if they are interested in this, definitely do contact CannaSense. And I vouch for Daniel, so I hope that'll encourage anyone out there who is struggling with any all sorts of different reasons that one would need to use cannabis medically. But well, I mean, that being said, we still got 15 minutes or so, and Daniel, I know you're going to be kind of taking a little bit of a break from the Downloaded Content podcast. And I want you to kind of talk about that and some of the projects you have. But I also want to say, too, we recorded an epic 2-hour conversation. And I'm just sort of dying to finally hear that again. We talked about, I think it was the best thing I ever said on, Pizzagate and that whole fucking debacle and scandal, whatever it was. So I hope that will be coming out at some point. But tell us about your new projects.
Yeah, well, the podcast is doing better than I ever could have anticipated, man. And it stems from not being, a part of network radio and kind of saying what I want to say and being my own boss and not being able to, lean against me in any type of way. So I put it out. And so I wanted to do it in a way that was very unprofessional. No bump music, no commercials, nothing like that. And it's mostly with the consent of people that I talk to. It's private conversations on Skype, very, it's not in a radio-friendly environment. It's just real people. It's people that, that you hear on network radio, but it's way more casual, way more, there's F-bombs and you got to be kind of polite on network radio. But when I'm talking to somebody through Skype on my podcast, we're real. We're real people, and that's just the way we're talking. And so because I am constantly evolving and I just don't like structure too awful much, I did the podcast. I started the podcast about 2 months ago. There's 33 podcasts, and there's also in tandem some updates with Jason Patrick that people can listen to. It is on iTunes, Stitcher, all that good stuff. If you click on any of the podcasts on Downloaded Content, you can catch it somewhere. But I'm a writer. That's my first and my first passion. That's what I'm here on this earth to do, is to write, to be a storyteller. And I've been sitting on 2, maybe 3 manuscripts that I just hadn't had time to publish anything. And so I felt that, 33 episodes, I'll be doing the 33rd podcast probably this week and putting it out there, and then kind of taking a break for a little while to get the ebooks out and the audiobooks of those ebooks. But your conversation with me, as well as a ton of other pre-recorded ones, are going to be in the queue for, I guess, the second season. I don't know what you would call it, the second set of podcasts whenever I come back. So, that's what the podcast is, and I talk about all kinds of things, Pierce. Politics, spirituality, comedy, all types of things, because that's what I would listen to. I don't like tuning into radio shows anymore or podcasts anymore because they have this thing called a format, and I don't like that. I don't like being forced to talk about World War III and how the world's coming to an end every day.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't like focusing on these types of things because it's boring to me. And so I don't. And when I have somebody, I guess you call it a guest on the podcast, I don't like them talking about it either. I want to know, I'm going to be talking to Jordan Maxwell for a podcast that will be released in the second set. And I thoroughly intend to make it something that you've never heard before with Jordan Maxwell, because let's face it, dude, a lot of these guys, and I think the internet's great because it gives everybody a voice who has a means. Everybody now has a means. If you got something to say, you could say it, and that's great. But it also saturates things to where if you've heard one Jordan Maxwell interview, you've heard them all. And that's not Jordan Maxwell's fault. Okay? It's because of the lack of the interviewer to tap into what's not being said for the past 20 years. Okay? And so that's kind of where I go with different guests like Santos Bonacci and Jordan Maxwell and Chuck Ocelli and yourself. I know that we look at them, and we have looked at them in the internet age as these big figures like David Icke and even Alex Jones, though he's been defrocked, thankfully. But we look at them as one pony tricks, I suppose, or one trick ponies. But these are real people. Jordan Maxwell's a real guy, and to me as a writer, I'm really interested in how he got to where he's at as far as mentally, spiritually, and all that. And so that's what I intend to probe. So that's the podcast. So I've gotten great feedback from it, and I do have a Patreon account. I don't push it as much. I'm just shy in that way, but I do need help with that, with putting out the podcast. So I got a patron he's been with me from the beginning, and he's fantastic, and I've taken the funds from that Patreon and just purchased equipment for the podcast and for the YouTube channel. So if people listen to me, if you appreciate anything, go to patreon.com/DLC and do like a monthly pledge, man, and that will go into the coffer for the next season or set of podcasts. I might have like a green screen with irrelevant scenery behind me just to show you that, like a rubber ducky or like a docking thing. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but it's a cheap green screen and you can like it and you pay for it. No, I wouldn't do that. I would actually use the money for something that's worthwhile. But, yeah, if you really support the podcast and my articles and things that I'm talking about, I would really appreciate it, man. Become my patron and spread my stuff. So that's a way. Also, I highly recommend picking up my novel that's out there to people who enjoy that type of thing. That'd be great. But go ahead.
No, definitely. And I was just going to say, we'll link up to all that. And again, Patreon, it's so simple. $1 a month does so much. People don't realize, all those dollars start to add up. And it's so simple.
And another thing is, and see, I haven't promoted it, but on all my YouTube videos and stuff, I do put please become my patron. I need help. Yes. But the thing is people assume that others are doing it. Okay?
Yeah, I know.
And they're not. If you really do appreciate what, like, I have to say or what you have to say, Pierce, dude, if you're going to buy, like, a soda every day, you can do this. You can help us out. And that is where you talk about the free market. That's where the free market really is a good thing. Because if you don't like what some douchebag is saying, don't be his patron. If you do, if you like what I'm saying or if you like what Pierce is saying, for real, give us $1 a month, man.
Yeah, I know. It's also, yeah.
It does cost us money. It costs us time. It costs a lot. It does cost us stuff to do this, and we wouldn't do it if, look, you're not going to be a millionaire doing what we do, Pierce. You know that. There's a monopoly on that, and it's called InfoWars. All right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're trying to be Alex Jones or anything. He was one of the first pioneers out there in that way, but it does help, man. Patreon is there for a reason. And I love putting stuff out, and I know you do too because you do it.
Yeah.
And so
and it really is expensive. You know, there's a lot of like I just got my quarterly bill from Pacer, which is the what is the full acronym? Public Access to Court Electronic Records. You know, which I use for a lot of the Jeffrey Epstein research. It's not cheap. You know, you think 10 cents a page to view a court document. Oh, it can't really cost that much. Believe me, you really start digging and doing research, and then it's suddenly it's like $200 that you owe. So there's all sorts of other expenses, but yeah, like you said, this stuff costs money, and if you like what you hear, if you want to support us in any way, yeah, $1 a month is nothing.
Yeah, it's not at all. And I know people who are, like, I believe you're talented, you're very professional, you sound very professional. I really dig what you're doing, Pierce. But there are some other hacks out there who are not talented, don't really care, they're snide, they're snarky, which I don't mind snarkiness if it's done correctly. They're not informative, who put out stuff like, help me with my Patreon, and they have, because they were, they were out there a little bit longer than, say, you or me. Yes. They have built an audience, and they get the funding, and it just perpetuates more shit. More stupid shit. I get that there is an agenda for a new world order, dude. I get that there's chemtrails. I get that there's pedophiles. You know why I get that? Because you've been saying it for 20 years.
I know. And just yelling at it. Yeah. Yelling at us isn't really doing anything.
Yeah, it's yeah, and what's crazier about it is the people who do that, they say, well, when I get the information out there to where I believe that it's out there, I'll quit. And they're still fucking talking.
Yeah. It's like, no, there's a lot of charlatans out there that will promise you the fucking world. And really, I mean, they're just in, I mean, that's I think I speak for both of us here too, Dan. I mean, we're not in it for the money, clearly. Because if we were, we'd be fucking talking about chemtrails and aliens and the New World Order every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Because you can't make money if you want to in that way.
There's a lot of money in fear. A lot of money in fear. It's actually addictive. It sets off chemicals in your brain to make you addicted to it, and then you pay some asshole to scare the shit out of you every week, and whatever.
Get some male vitality supplements in as well.
Yeah, and I'm not pegging Alex, Jones, but he did. There are a good bit of your first tier, quote, alternative radio people are just fucking Alex Jones clones. And they need to go away. They need to just be honest with themselves and go, I gave it a run, and be done with it, because we are not in the age of trouble anymore. For people who are real metaphysical, the age of Kali Yuga is over. Okay? And those people are fucking dinosaurs. All right? And so it's going to take a new set of voices to pioneer that. And we need your support. We need people's support, and it's not like you're just giving us money. You get some quality stuff, dude. Go take a look. I mean, go take a look at our websites and graphics and stuff. That takes time. That takes money. That takes passion. Takes a lot, dude. So you are getting something for it. You really, really are. And it helps, man. It helps. So,
No, absolutely. No, I mean, please, yes, give us money.
I won't take my shirt off, but
I know. Yeah, I draw the line at Joker makeup, but you do get, there's some other quality stuff that you get from me.
Oh, you want to? Let me just say this. Sorry, I got ADD, but another one is, give me a break, dude. No, you are not getting hacked by the damn government every 15 minutes and need emergency. Shut the hell up. That was not.
Oh, I know. That's the biggest load of bullshit out there.
We've been hacked. We've been demarked from Google. Well, wait a second. For 20 years, you've been saying don't use Google.
Yeah. Daniel Louis Crumpton, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. We'll have to have you back on again sometime soon. Lots more to talk about with you. Thank you all for joining me, and I will be coming to you next week.
Thanks, Pierce.
news and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me. American Freedom Radio, Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys, because they have all the technology, they have all these great things that they're going to do, but obviously they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network, and we just need that so much.
Nutritious food is real body armor. It builds muscle, burns fat, improves digestion, and feeds the entire body the nutrients it needs. Did you know the U.S. government banned the hemp plant from growing in the United States and classified it as a Schedule I drug to hide it behind the marijuana plant? People have been confused about this plant for over 80 years, and many still don't know what hemp is. So now you know hemp is not marijuana, and marijuana is not hemp. They are different varieties of the same species. HempUSA.org wants the world to know these basic facts and to help people understand that hemp protein powder is the best kept health secret you need to know about. Remember, hemp protein powder contains 53% protein, is gluten-free, anti-inflammatory, non-GMO, and is loaded with nutrients. Call 888-910-4367, 888-910-4367, and see what our powder, seeds, and oil can do for you. Only at HempUSA.org.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.